others and help people along the route of having fridges if they so wish.
Brilliant. Thanks, Claire. Jennifer. We're heading up to the Blackdowns now.
Yes, I'm Jennifer Ash. I'm chair of Blackdown Hills Transition, and my dog was very interested to hear what your dog was saying, Claire. So we have not talked at all of setting up a community larder or fridge, and I'm here just to hear what it's about and perhaps get some inspiration.
Lovely, thank you. Tila, do you want to follow that, being also from the Blackdowns?
Thank you. Yes, I'm new to all this and I'm listening in really, but I did wonder where the nearest one might be and how one might coordinate spare stuff from the allotments, for example, because we give it locally to individuals that we know, but if there are somewhere near. So that's about it really, yeah.
Brilliant, lovely. So we might get some insights from Sally and Coroney about that in a moment. Vanessa.
Hello, I'm Vanessa Riley, chair of Dawlish Against Plastic. I'd be interested to find out a bit more about it. We haven't really talked about doing anything ourselves. Obviously, our main interest is plastic, but I would be interested to find out more about this because I'm wondering how it dovetails in with HITS. How these two things work together. So I'd be interested to find out about that.
Okay, great, thank you. And Bren, also from Dawlish. You're on mute.
Hi, I also belong to Dawlish Against Plastic with Vanessa, but yeah, just interested to hear how to go about setting one up and certainly interested for Dawlish. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you. Tony. Welcome.
Hi, yeah, thank you. Well, I'm part of Ufcombe Green Team, which is also part of Sustainable Tiverton, and we've been involved with the Tiverton Fridge since it's set up. But just before the virus had an impact on us, we were talking about setting up our own fridge in Ufcombe. We're well on our way to doing that. We've done a lot of the processes that are needed to put us in a position to open up as soon as restrictions are lifted. But in the meantime, we're working a distribution system in any case. People don't come to us. We get the produce from the local supermarkets and manufacturers, and then through the schools and the churches, we actually distribute the food that way. So I'm really interested to know why there aren't more men involved in the other groups.
Interesting reflection. Maybe we'll put that one out in a moment. Or maybe they're just not here this evening. Bettina. Hello. I think you, oh.
Hello?
Hello, that's better. We can't see you, but we can hear you.
My computer plays up, sorry. I'm transition Newton Abbot and also plastic free Newton Abbot. I just came to see what is needed really to do a community fridge. Someone in my village that is agro is thinking of doing it. So I just thought I wanted to be more informed and then maybe I can help. Yeah.
Lovely. Great. Thank you. Nice to see you. Yeah. And then we've got Heather. You're on mute, Heather. That's it.
Okay.
Yes.
I can barely hear any of you, so I am missing a lot of what is being said.
Okay.
Unfortunately.
If it's connection,
yeah. Sorry, missed that.
If it's your connection, it might be worth turning your video off.
I tried all that.
There it is to see you.
All right.
Okay, we can hear you.
I've got just a picture of you now.
Are you still there?
I'm switching to gallery view, but I've only got 9 of you.
Okay.
And I can't see me now, but if you can hear me, that's okay.
Yes.
Yes, I'm with Sally Chapman in Rerouted in Tiverton, running our usual thing that we do with Rerouted, but also a very successful community fridge in our local library.
Brilliant.
Hello?
You're invited. Hi.
Yeah, right.
Oh, that's tricky. Thank you, Heather.
Right. Sorry, but it's just so bad I might even leave you actually.
See how you get on, but thank you for that. It's nice to have you here. If you can manage to stay with us, that would be lovely.
Okay.
Okay, Caroline. Hello, Caroline.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Hello. I am a member of the core group of Sustainable Crediton, and
Okay.
we haven't got a food bank at the moment. We've got quite thriving clothes swaps and things like that, and we've also got a good food bank. And there's lots and lots of questions, I'd like to find out about, like what are the most suitable venues for a community fridge, and I wonder whether it's adequate to have it available in the daytime, or whether people find that you need to have it. I was wondering if people who were donating stuff might be more likely to donate in the evening, and people who collected would be more likely to collect in the day,
Yeah.
or how timing and places work out, really.
Okay. Let's see whether we can
Depends.
for those.
It depends where you're going to put the fridge. Sometimes it's not possible to donate in the evenings because the fridge needs to be somewhere where it can be locked away in the evenings.
Yes.
Okay. Can we hold the debate until a bit later on?
Yes.
Please. Because I'm still conscious we haven't heard from Roger and Jackie. Caroline. Roger and Jackie?
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, nice to meet you all. We were operating as Timoth Mutual Aid, and we were collecting shopping and prescriptions and so on during the whole of the epidemic. And so we acquired quite a good number of volunteers, many of whom we still got. So we had a sort of ready-made band of people. And we all agreed that we wanted to move on to a community larder. We talked about it and decided that's what we wanted to do. And we are more or less set up to open in a fortnight now. We've got everything set. We've got the volunteers to do the different jobs that we need, the collecting of food, the being there on a Wednesday when we're open, and actually providing food. We've got connections with Food Share, and we get a Tesco slot, and we were worried about that to begin with because I know somebody was talking about hits. We didn't want to interfere with what was already happening with food banks, but we wanted to be a little bit different and slightly more flexible, and that's great because Tesco is doing lots of slots, including for food banks, and so are Morrison's and so the others, and so we're not going on anybody's footprints. We've got local shops helping us because we help them by delivering for them, and we've got individuals who've helped to finance it by standing orders. Little tiny ones, perhaps only £2 a month, but when you get a lot of people doing that, it's brilliant. So next Wednesday is our training day for our volunteers. We're quite excited and very nervous, and we don't really know who's going to come, so we're leafleting Timoth gradually between us.
Fantastic. And remind me, which community are you in?
Timoth.
Timoth. It is Timoth. Fantastic.
It is.
Very exciting.
Very scary.
Lovely. Thank you. I haven't missed anyone, have I? No. Brilliant. Gosh, so already I'm hearing that we've got quite a wealth of knowledge and expertise, plus a real enthusiasm to get things going in your communities, plus just an open curiosity. So hopefully that'll be a brilliant mix for the next hour. I'm just going to very briefly share my screen because I want to share this one. If you're not aware, there is a community fridge network, and there are 120 members at the moment. It's run through an organisation called hubbub.org.uk, and I've put the link in the chat. And this was just a couple of their stats that I wanted to share with you from their activities last year. So they've got 120 members, of which 80 are operational. I think Rerouted is a member, isn't it? Yeah. I don't know yet whether Corony and the Team Valley posse are. But look at that in terms of the volume of food redistributed, nearly 800,000 kilos of food, which is pretty impressive. 62,000 users of those community fridges and over 200 volunteers involved. I think that's probably a bit on the conservative side, to be honest. You know, it is a growing interest and a growing, unfortunately, a growing need in some ways. But I just thought this was a really nice one to bear in mind. So again, I'm not an expert on community fridges, but I really like this slide in terms of what community fridges, as we might anticipate, are doing. It's not just about redistribution of food, but helping to feed families, but actually that kind of growing of community cohesion, increased healthy diets, reducing food waste, obviously, which is a big, you know, attractive thing from our point of view and from Devon County Council's point of view. Also, in terms of, so Vanessa mentioned about reducing waste and reducing plastic packaging, how that links together. Quite a few of the community fridges recognised that this was happening within their communities, that actually there was reduced plastic packaging and obviously reduced food waste. So, you know, it's not just a case of redistributing food. There's so much more, as we might have thought, that goes along with that. This is a really interesting report to read, and it's available off the website that I've put in the chat. So, you know, worth a look as a starter for 10. But also on that website, you'll also find all sorts of tools and resources and templates. If you sign up to join the Community Fridge Network through Hubbub, then, you know, they've got lots of templates for all the kind of basic forms that you'll need to set up and work your way through to get your project up and running. So that, I'm going to click stop share because that's as much as I wanted to share with you at this point, but just to give you a bit of context on a national scale. And now I want to hand over to Corony from the Team Valley Community Larder. They've been up and running 2 months now.
Yep.
And just some wonderful stories to tell. So yeah, if I hand over to Corony, and I think you're going to share some slides. So jot down if you've got any questions as Corony goes through. We'll try and take hold your questions or jot them down in the chat, and then we'll try and pick them up once Sally and Corony have both shared what they've been up to. Over to you.
Okay, so have you all got my Team Valley Larder slide on your screens?
Yes. Oh,
great.
Myself.
All right, so some people are from further away than nearer. So for those who don't know, the Team Valley, if you know where Teignmouth is, most people know where Teignmouth is. We're the River Team that comes into Teignmouth, and we're upstream from Roger and Jackie and folk. West of Exeter, and right on the eastern boundary of the Dartmoor National Park, the River Teign, where it runs north-south down the Team Valley, is actually that eastern boundary of the Dartmoor National Park. So that's where we are. It's unlike many food banks and community larders and fridges and so on. We're in a very rural area, and this is an aerial shot of part of the Team Valley. The cluster of houses you can see here is part of Cristo. Actually, it extends, it's a sort of kind of T-shaped village. This is the biggest conurbation in the Tean Valley. Cristo is the capital of the Tean Valley, as the others don't like us to say. But you can see it is very, very rural, and there are numerous sort of isolated houses and so on around. And when we got together, we very much wanted to provide something for the Tean Valley community, not just one of the villages, and that was partly about viability, but partly about community, because although we're quite a dispersed community, there is a real sense of a Tean Valley community, interestingly. So the story, and I was going to tell you a kind of very short version of the story of what we did, and then go into some of the detail of the decisions we had to make. Back at the end of April, the owner of the village shop, Cristo's Stores, put up a post on the Tean Valley Facebook page encouraging people to donate to Exeter Food Bank, promptly followed by someone who's now become part of our team, who said perhaps we should set up a Tean Valley Food Bank. And that's because to get into Exeter, if you're in one of the villages that the bus goes through, and that's not all of them, there are 4 buses a day. It's a 1-hour trip in each direction. You have a bus fare to pay. If you drive in, it takes half an hour, but there's parking and so on. So it seems silly that people who were actually in need were having to travel all the way into Exeter when we might be providing something locally. Also that we were donating stuff to go into Exeter when we could be just giving it to people within our own community. There was a really good response to that post, and the result was that within 2 days, a group of 6 of us had got together for a planning meeting. And 10 days after that, we opened our larder, which was astonishingly fast. The initial larder is based in the porch of St. James's Church in Cristo, and we have some other branches since then. But it just shows that you can do these things very swiftly if you've got a mind to. There are some caveats to that. Locations now, up and down the Tean Valley. Cristo is the sort of central unit where we've got shelves in a larder in a porch for the larder. But we've now got locations in 5 of the other villages. The ones shaded kind of peach coloured, there are both donation boxes and collection boxes, and the other 2 are for donations only. They're in church porches, they're in pub car parks and porches, and you can see the bottom one in Ashton, the most recent one, is just a box on the side of the road, although I think it might be on a table now. This is a picture of the Cristo church porch. I've said equipment rather grandly underneath. When we started, the first thing we thought about was practicalities. You know, what would we actually need to have a larder there? So some old shelves that one of our team painted, some plastic boxes, initially donated, but then we bought some of our own off Amazon. And for the other churches, you can see it is just a couple of plastic boxes on the bench. In terms of operation, this was one of our first kind of difficult decisions, if you like. We were very conscious that in a rural community like this, paradoxically, although people are geographically quite dispersed, as a community, people feel very close. And by that, I mean, everybody knows each other and they all know each other's business. And we were quite worried that if we operated on a conventional food bank model, that people who needed to wouldn't come. So we decided we should minimize any stigma attached to coming into the larder. We should have a message that it's for anyone could be going in and out. Clearly in the church porches, we couldn't lock it anyway. We weren't going to seek referrals of the sort that you would have in a conventional food bank, and nor did we have the capacity to provide people to staff it and check what people were doing or taking. So I suppose you could summarize that by saying that people used it to donate stuff, to borrow things or swap, and I'll explain a bit more about that in a minute, or also just to take things. So having decided that, we put together some communications materials fairly sharply. Very lucky to have on our team someone who's got a real skill for graphic design and so on. He came up with our heading and produced some of this material. And this went out as a website, a Facebook page, and a PDF flyer that was sent round with local school newsletters as a message via our Acorn Community Support Group, and posters, laminated posters up and down the valley, pinned to notice boards and telegraph poles and the like. We did, about 2 weeks later, have to follow up with some FAQs because our village shop, although we've been working closely with them, were a bit concerned that people might think it was a free shop. Clearly it wasn't. So just a bit of clarification on the FAQs. Incidentally, all of this material I think you can download from our website if you want to see it later. So here was a Facebook post on our page from someone who'd gone down to borrow an onion in exchange for a half-used packet of cat biscuits. An obvious swap. Somebody'd also given us some recycled birthday cards that were in there. We've also got, and this was I think Helen's interest, an out-of-date box where you can see in the picture some things that you wouldn't normally expect in a food bank. There's some quite high-end organic, vegan, health food items. And the idea is that anyone comes and takes those, but we encourage them to donate as a swap instead. So this is about using some of our other donated stuff to leverage donations of the basic things. We needed, somebody else has mentioned, volunteers to do cleaning and also to manage the stock. So we produced some notes and things for cleaners. We put out a call on Facebook. We were swamped actually with volunteer offers, which was fantastic. The volunteers go down, they each have a day a week. They do a good thorough clean. We've done a risk assessment around COVID transmission, so the cleaning's particularly rigorous. And they also record any stock that's come into the donations box. And there's a similar sheet where they record what they've had to take out of the stock room, which is in a barn that happens to be in my house, and things that they take back down to the larder. So some quite careful record keeping. Clearly, we also needed some money for this. And when we started, it coincided with the Dartmoor National Park Authority and other organisations really offering some very no strings attached, easy to get hold of, but relatively small grants for people to respond to the coronavirus emergency. And we very quickly were able to get money from Dartmoor National Park, Devon Community Foundation, and our local Christo Community Land Trust, and also insurance cover through CAG, which was very important because getting insurance is both costly but almost impossible if you're not a formally constituted group. So we had £1,100 to start us off. We also made contact with a lot of the local services. We have a community support group, the schools, the GPs, the parish councils, and crucially the local churches group, because they not only gave us 3 church porches to locate our larders in, they were also instrumental in already having contacts with most of these other groups. And those groups were able to confirm our sense that there was a need for food distribution to people, but also then in pushing out the communications and making sure that people who needed to use the larder got to hear about it. Acorn by this time had obviously had to stop running their coffee mornings and their minibus service into Sainsbury's and so on, but had put in place a volunteer drivers and shoppers system instead. So some of the Acorn helpers have been actually going to the larder to collect items for some of their clients. So working, I think, in partnership with some of those local agencies has been quite important too. And then the final things in terms of who we reached out to, we've more recently established contact with suppliers, a couple of local organic vegetable and vegetable box producers, Wind Out Farm, who give us eggs, And FareShare, most recently, have been an absolute godsend and have been able to deliver us a large amount of tinned food. Right, so it's been quite interesting for me trying to keep the larder stocked, watching our dwindling grant fund, and beginning to appreciate what it feels like to have that sort of food insecurity in a kind of vicarious way, and thinking, God, will we have enough money to buy some more tins of Spam next week? But we've got several routes to get our food. We have people who just drop off carrier bags of stuff or the odd tin in our donations boxes, this sort of stuff. And we buy that from the supermarkets. And I've become very knowledgeable about who sells the cheapest tinned rice pudding in the last few weeks. More recently, as people's allotments and vegetable gardens have been producing, this was dropped off about 5 days ago. Some lovely new potatoes, very thoughtfully with some mint and peas. There are the eggs from our local farm. Oxon Park Farm, one of the vegetable growers, had a whole load of onions that had bolted that were going to go on the compost heap. So they've gone on the food waste tally, Helen. They all went, 20 kilos of onions. And that was the delivery that we had from FareShare just last week. And also recently, not solicited by us, but people have started to do this, which was just so moving, you know. Somebody came to do a bit of pruning of bushes for me and said, no, use it for the larder. And a couple of people have done that now, not just with me, but in other situations. So this is very heartening. There's a real appetite in the community to help. And one person who wanted to give us money, and we've had to sort of hold back because we haven't got our own bank account yet, actually said, I've got money, he said, but I'm not fit enough to do anything else. I would really like to be able to do something for a change instead of being on the receiving end. And I think that's a sentiment that people can tap into. Okay, so how did it all go at the end of our first month? So this was at the end of May. This was some of the data and the feedback. We got these comments through Acorn, who'd been talking to people who were using the larder. And notice top right, at that point, we had nearly 500 items, tins or potatoes or whatever, that had been taken from the larder. And by the end of this month, that had shot up from 500 items to, and I can't see because I've got the video over the top, 2,400. So month one, 500 items collected, month two, 1,500 items collected. And you can see, you know, tracking week on week, the amount of stuff that's going out of the larder, it is going up. We're not quite sure why. More people hearing about it, people confident using it, but also we suspect with furlough schemes coming to an end, people losing their jobs, people who were surviving on savings, finding that money's running out and so on. We do have a lot of people in the area who work from home, running small self-employed businesses, for example. Okay, so that's where we are. Just a few more things. I've been talking about the practicalities and really how we got from 0 to a food bank in 10 days. It was an emergency. We did include risk assessment and insurance cover as part of that initial setup. Thank you very much, CAG and Helen. But we're now into our sort of second month. We're now looking at making ourselves sustainable and the formalities. So we've been collecting data. We need to show impact. We've been trying to get users to fill in feedback slips. We get a few, not enough. So we're trying to scratch our heads as to how to get more of those. We've also been keeping these records, that feedback sheet that I showed earlier. Sorry, not feedback sheet, but the record sheet from the volunteers. They get entered into a spreadsheet every day. The weight of the out of date or perishable items, the food waste, are all being recorded. 81 kilos so far in 2 months, pretty good. Most of it was onions. We're looking at what I've called the legalities. We're trying to get registered as a charity. This is not easy. We've had one rejection, so we're going back for another try. We desperately need our own bank account. The Team Valley Churches community has been hosting our funds for us. We can pay reasonable chunks of grant money in, but we can't expect them to be dealing with those. I think it was Roger and Jackie who were talking about those standing orders of £2 a month or whatever. We need our own bank account to do that. CAF have said that we can have a bank account, but they won't activate it until we're set up as a charity. So maybe others can give us some advice on that presently. And right to take us to the end, the other thing, the big challenge, is where we're going to go when the church want their porch back. Because once they're open for services again, which they're not yet, once, as the vicar pointed out, they've got a bride with 6 bridesmaids in meringue dresses, they will need our larder out of the way. So this picture is not a real thing, it's a mock-up. But we are thinking about getting a trailer just because it circumvents within the national park all kinds of planning issues. And since we're servicing a number of villages in the valley, it gives us the potential to be able to move around from place to place if we want to.
Oh, sorry, that was suitably boring.
Yeah, there you go. So that's the end of the presentation from me. And I don't know how you want to take things from now, Helen?
Lovely. Coralie, fantastic. Thank you so much. I learned some of that I was aware of, and some of it was new to me. Absolutely fascinating. I'm sure it's generated lots of questions. Has anyone got a burning response now? But I'm going to say hold your questions until Sally's talked about what's going on at Rerouted. But if anyone's got just wants to go, wow, whatever you want to say, it's fantastic. For me, obviously, I'm delighted about all that data collection and impact, and Bobby's smiling. We've had conversations about that. But does anyone else want to make a quick response before we move on to Sally talking about Rerouted? Yes, Roger and Jackie Jackson, do. Do you want to unmute yourself?
Yep. Just wanted to say that we also needed a bank and needed to get going, and we found the most useful bank was the Unity Trust Bank. They are really, really helpful. It was very hard with any other bank to get anything to agree to opening, but the Unity Trust Bank were helpful.
And they understand the sector as well.
Yeah.
So that's good. Great. Anybody else? Or shall we move on to Sally? Okay. Thank you again, Coralie. That's fantastic. The session is being recorded, but we can also share the slides as well if people want them separately. So yeah, either way, but brilliant. Thank you. Sally.
Yeah, hi everybody, and congratulations, Coralie. I think that's a very impressive turnaround, and your presentation as well was really, really good. I haven't got a presentation, unfortunately. I'm up in Scotland visiting a friend, so I haven't been able to put anything together. But I said to
and she's frozen in Scotland. Give her a moment, see if she's coming back. No. Sally. Oh, I think she's. Oh, there she is. Hello.
Sorry. Yes, so Sustainable Tiverton has been going for about 10 years. We've got an established bank account and a sort of umbrella organisation already. So, it started off with our cafe, our surplus food cafe, and so I'll just kind of run through what kind of how we led up to opening the cafe, because that's really the set the groundwork, if you like, for the community fridge. And also I've got Heather here. I'll ask Heather to interject at the appropriate time to talk about what she does with the fridge. And so, yeah, in 2017, we had the lovely Ruth Leonard Williams, who was the CAG volunteer, and she was absolutely brilliant. She was a project officer for CAG, and so she put on a Love Food, Hate Waste course, well, 2 courses, and that is put on by the Waste Recycling and Advice Partnership. Yeah, so we had 2 courses in Tiverton, and it was all about, you know, saving, how to kind of make best use of waste food in your home, and some statistics and stuff. And out of that, there was a group of us who were really keen to do something in Tiverton. And so we met up further again with Ruth and talked about setting up a surplus food cafe, a monthly surplus food cafe. So we set about finding a venue, which was St George's Hall, which we had to get vetted by Environmental Health. We also found a store, Mid-Devon District, the Tiverton Town Council have got a rather interesting store under the town hall, which they let us have rent-free, and you know, without paying electricity. So in fact, it's been a very good store because it's very cool down there. So it's a bit of a cellar setup. So we've got a nice cool store, and places where we've got about 4 freezers now down there now. So we set up a freezer, we set up our store, and we had our venue, and very nervously we embarked on our first surplus food cafe. So if I just go through where we sourced our food from. So we registered with Fair Share, which I think Corinne talked about Fair Share. And I can, if anyone wants to know more about registering with that and how it works, then ask me afterwards. So Fair Share cover Tesco's, Asda and Waitrose. So if you have got any of those stores in your area, then you know those, you know, it'd be worth registering with Fair Share. Also Neighbourly is an organisation, another umbrella organisation, which covers all the surplus food for Marks and Spencer's, Lidl and Aldi. So we're also registered with Neighbourly, and that's Marks and Spencer's in Tiverton. You can also register with the Co-op. The Co-op do, you know, surplus food donations, and Morrison's, we did get donations from Morrison's, but that had, you know, over the last year or so, it hasn't kind of worked out. You know, so we had a team of collectors who would collect food at allotted times during the week, and they would be stored in our fridges and freezer and in our store. And then we, you know, at the monthly cafe, we would all kind of like gather the food, get the volunteers together, you know, and we'd cook an amazing sort of 3-course meal. So this went on for a couple of years, and then we decided that we'd like to set up a fridge to be able to kind of improve, you know, the amount of food that we were rescuing from landfill. So we'd heard about community fridges, and we went to look at the fridge down in Chadford. Is it Chadford? Yeah. Anyway, so we went and looked at a setup. We then registered with the Hubbub Community Fridge Network, and I think I sent a link to Helen, which, you know, maybe you could share that, Helen. So that was, you know, so if you join the Hubbub Community Fridge Network, you get access to all their documents. You know, there's lots of signs and policies and procedures and risk assessments and notices and pictures and all this kind of graphics and all sorts. Yeah, so it's well worth doing that. And also, if you register with them, you'll be able, you get got a venue at that point for our community fridge. We registered with the Hubbub Community Fridge Network, and we ordered our fridge in sort of good faith that we would find somewhere to put it. So our original hope was that we would put it in the Tiverton Pannier Market, which I don't know if any of you know Tiverton at all, but there's a really lovely pannier market where there's lots of stalls and veg markets and sort of outer stalls as well. And we'd spoken to the market manager. He was really keen, you know, to house a community fridge. But unfortunately, he had a bit of a backlash from some of the stall holders at the pannier market who weren't happy with the fact that we were going to be giving away free food. And so that didn't work out. So we were then, you know, a bit of a loss really. So we put out feelers, made contact with other people, and eventually the lovely manager from the Tiverton library came forward and said, you know, she'd like to, you know, house the fridge in the library. So, and that has been absolutely ideal, and for a number of reasons. Firstly is that, you know, the fridge is open when the library's open. There are staff there, you know, all the time whilst it's open, obviously, and the library counter is right opposite where the fridge is, so they can monitor people coming and going and taking stuff out. So the risk of vandalism or misuse is, you know, virtually nil really. And also in terms of stigma, I think it minimises the stigma of it, because a lot of people come into the library, people come in to use the computers, get books and all the rest of it. So on their way out, they'll just have it, you know, open the fridge door, you know, and grab something from the fridge on the way out, you know. So I mean, you know, I would say there's virtually no stigma really. I mean, I don't know if Heather, you agree with that, but I think there's virtually no stigma really in using our fridge in the library. Interesting, just picking up on some of the comments earlier, but we also work closely with the food bank in Tiverton, which is run by CHAT, Churches Housing Action Team. I've got a food bank which has been running for many years now. So we work in a collaborative way with the food bank. So they quite often get stuff that, you know, is not suitable to be given away to people in food parcels, you know, and they'll pass it on to us. Equally, we'll get stuff from, you know, the shops and whatnot, like tin beans and tin soup and things like that, which may not be, you know, as suitable to go into the fridge. Yeah, so we work in a sort of collaborative way. So we have, you know, so in terms of the sort of the kind of the official side of things, we had to register. We registered as a food business when we did the cafe. So that for any of you out there, it means contacting environmental health officer in your local authority, you know, talking to them about what you're doing, you know, and then they'll obviously kind of talk to you about the sort of things that you wouldn't want to have in the fridge, you know, because basically we're working with food that's got a best before date and food that's got a use by date. So and we don't take any meat at all. So we're basically dealing with low risk food. So we can take things that are, you know, where their best before dates have expired, you know, mainly that sort of bread and fruit and vegetables. We can take things that are before their use by date, but we don't often, because they tend to be things that run out on that particular day. So we're very sort of circumspect about taking things, you know, before their use by date. So we have a fridge. We also have a larder side as well. So we have right next to the fridge in the library, we've got shelves where we take all the sort of tinned, packaged foods and stuff. So I don't know, Heather, would you like to just interject now and say what you do in your role? Can you hear me? You need to unmute yourself.
Hear me now?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Sorry, love. I forgot I pressed that. Yeah, I mean, I'm involved with rerouting and I cook at the cafes, but also now because I live so near to the library, I'm down there most mornings because it has to be under health and hygiene, obviously. It has to be given a bit of a clean out every day. Make sure that there isn't anything in there that really shouldn't be in there. because we've got, although I'm in there nearly every day and some of the other girls are in there delivering stuff, and we get deliveries most mornings about 9 o'clock. If you're not there by 10 o'clock, it's gone. It is so popular. I cannot tell you how quickly food goes. And we can stack it until we can't get any more on the shelves. And by 10, 10:30, it's gone. It gets very, very well used. We don't have to log anything or things like that. About once every, I think it's once every 6 months, we have to do a week of weighing and logging just to come under food hygiene regulations. But other than that, it's pretty straightforward. I mean, I go in, spend whatever time I've got to in there, and then leave it then to people just to help themselves. As Sally said, the librarians are very good. They keep an eye on it for us. Obviously, it's going to be very, very different trying to reopen it with this lockdown. It's going to be very difficult. But if anybody wants to ask me any questions, they can. As I said, it is very, very straightforward. You have to sign a sheet every day to say it's been cleaned and somebody's had a look at it. As Sally said, we don't take any fresh meat or fish. We can take dairy products if, they're pasteurized. We get all kinds of things put in there. We've got Dragonfly Foods, who Tony will know about from Ufcombe, because he brings it in for us sometimes. They make all soy and tofu products. We keep a lot in our freezers in our store, and we can add things like that to the fridge, especially bread. Sometimes we freeze the bulk of bread we get and sometimes take it in a bulk down to the fridge. So that's it, basically. Cannot state how successful it is and how much wanted it is. Very, very much wanted. But if anybody's got any questions to ask me about it, a little bit of hassle like all these things to set up, but very big thank you to the lady who does the food and hygiene at Tiverton Town Council. She came down and went through all the papers with us and said, yes, you don't need that, you don't need that, you only need this. So get on your environmental officer's side at the local council. They can be very helpful, especially with community fridges getting more and more popular. Okay. All right,
Thanks,
Helen.
Heather. Thank you, Heather. Yeah,
All
so
right,
I think personally the location factor is the thing that we struggled with the most, really. So I think before we had been offered the library, we did struggle with finding a location and considered all sorts of things, because you do need to have somewhere that's secure, where you can supervise it and it doesn't get vandaled and misused and things. Yeah, so I think that is the most crucial thing. Otherwise you'll kind of make a rod for your own back, unless you've got it in a secure place. Yeah, so, and as Heather had, get your environmental health person on your side, do your health and hygiene certificates. I mean, we ran a couple of courses where we had our volunteers came along to a location and we did it all together, but you can also do those online quite easily. We've got quite a few signage on the front of our fridge, and it talks about the sort of stuff that you can put in the fridge, what you shouldn't put in the fridge, how to use the fridge, all that kind of thing. It's difficult, I can share those signs with you if you're interested, but they're on, the Hubbub Community Fridge Network. You'll get all that kind of signage. Yeah, and I think the one thing that the environmental health officer said about people bringing in their own food, I think you just need to be careful about that. If they're bringing in you can't bring anything in that's already been opened and put it in the fridge. It has to remain sealed. So just be careful about that. And I think, you know, that includes things like homemade jam and things. You just need to be a bit careful with that kind of thing. But yeah, you know, we have our ups and downs. I think sometimes with some of our customers. But I mean, at the end of the day, you can't police really how much people take. You know, at the end of the day, I think that you have to sort of say the focus is about, it's not about food poverty, it's about saving food from landfill. You know, so you can't dictate who takes what and how much people take, unfortunately, because we just haven't got the kind of staff to do that. Yeah, and we do work well with the local food bank. That works really well.
Brilliant.
Yes.
Oh, Heather wants to say something, but you're still muted, Heather.
I keep having to unmute it. It keeps slipping back. Yeah, Sally's right. I forgot to say that there are one or two people that you will find, if you ever open one, that do abuse the system a bit, but then you'll get that anywhere you live. And also thinking in mind that Tiverton is becoming quite a large town now. It's not like some of your very rural areas where it's easy to keep an eye on things. And especially when you get some very enthusiastic people who are very, very nice, want to bring things down during the day and put in the fridge. And you have to explain very nicely to them sometimes why they can't, because it's not something we can take. But we've also got, you know, the local supermarkets, the local veg market. They give us things that we put in there as well, just like we do with our cafes. So it all works really, really well. But like most things, just now and again, you know, you do have a little bit of hassle, but it's nothing really, nothing to compare with what food we actually give out.
Fantastic.
Okay.
Ali, Heather, thank you so much. That's it's been
okay.
Learned a huge amount about, yes, quite right. Learned a huge amount about the community fridge in Tiverton, about which I didn't know very much. So really helpful. I'm going to offer it up to anyone now. We've got just under half an hour left. So I'm just going to open it up now for anybody if they want to ask a question. Maybe stick your hand up, or there is a little oh, it's a clap or a thumbs up. But anyway, if you want to just wave at me if you want to ask a question. Anybody? Katie.
Nobody. Oh, okay.
Hi. Doesn't HITS cover this for Teignbridge? This is what I'm concerned about. We don't want to reinvent the wheel here. I don't know. Okay, that's all I had to ask.
I don't know a huge amount about HITS and what they're up to in Teignbridge. So if anyone else wants to chip in their thoughts or knowledge on that, fire away.
I don't know a huge amount about HITS, but I do know that the Chud Fridge lot do work with them a bit. So there are some links there. So I'm sure there are connections that can be made.
I can say that certainly I've been in HITS when Chud Fridge has come as they were today and picked up stuff and that's how it works. We all interact similar like food share. We also get a huge amount from food share when they're doing their dole out from Bristol. We had a chap went up last week and got pallets of stuff. But similarly, we get an awful lot from the supermarkets, and if we can't, we do give to Chud Fridge. They come and pick up from us as well. So we do interact with them quite freely.
Does everybody know what HITS is? Sarah, do you want to explain that?
Well, as Katie said, it's the main food bank that serves Teignbridge. So we cover Teignmouth, Dawlish, Newton Abbot, Kings Tainton, all round there. It's mainly food we give out, but we can give out clothes. People who've had to escape from, domestic violence or something, we can quickly make up packages for them and their babies, and But they have to get, for a food bank, they have to initially get referred to by a social worker, citizens advice, GP, anyone, police it can be. But then once they're on our radar, then they can just sort of self-refer, as long as they're not calling up every few days, which some people do. But you know, they get a food parcel if and when they need one. So
great, thank you. So room to work together. There's room for more.
Absolutely, yeah.
Great, thank you. Anyone else got a question to Sally or to Coroney? Okay, so Claire, fire away.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, Coroney, that presumably you set up in lockdown or in already in coronavirus situation, and I'm just interested to know sort of from you and from the Tivy Fridge people, you know, what the issues have been in relation to COVID-19 and what you think might happen going forward, and whether it's fine, it all works with no issues, or whether there's new things you've needed to take into account.
Shall I answer that first? I think part of our impetus for starting was because of the impact of COVID-19. You know, I also belong to a group called Teen Climate Hub, and we've been talking about reducing food waste and so on for a while. But the larder came from a different direction, and I think it was partly because I was involved in it that we pushed to have the dual purpose food waste reduction and food distribution to those in need in parallel. And as it turns out, there's quite a good synergy there between the two. Implications, one of our team is someone who's worked in the health services previously and is quite experienced at doing risk assessments. So we did do quite a careful risk assessment, not just around the things you might normally do, but also specifically about minimizing the risk of COVID transmission through what we were doing. And that was making sure we've got hand sanitizer in the larder locations, that we've got notices about using it, that we're asking people not to donate if anyone in their families had symptoms and blah, blah, blah. But that's all about notices and messages, and not everybody reads those, unfortunately. But we're also very mindful, you know, every time we meet, which at the moment is fortnightly, we're looking at the risks and just checking that we don't need to review those. One of the reasons we decided that it was quite low risk at the moment is because of the very low rate of infection we've got in the southwest at the moment. If that changes, and particularly if within Teenbridge we see the rate of infection go up, we might have to rethink. The other thing I would say is that, and I should have mentioned them earlier, I spoke to some of the people Amanda, who was involved in setting up Chud Fridge right very early on in our planning. She was enormously helpful. And she explained they'd had to close Chud Fridge because, a little bit like in Tiverton, when Chud Fridge deliveries arrived, they were having little groups of people queuing up, waiting to collect stuff. And they didn't close because they thought that the items on the shelves would be a transmission risk. It was because their volunteers couldn't safely deliver stuff to the shelves because they had to push their way through the small crowd who were waiting to get stuff. And that's really tragic, actually, that those people no longer had Chud Fridge there for that reason. That's not an issue for us at all out in the Tean Valley. You know, people quietly slip in and out of those church porches, often trying not to be seen, and we don't get crowds. Does that answer your query, Claire? Yeah.
I think Sally would add to that. Thank you, Coroney.
Yeah, I think you just need to be careful about maybe mixing it up a little bit, so you're not always delivering at 9 o'clock. Yeah, so people aren't sort of waiting. Yes, there. Yeah, I mean that's the only thing you can do, really. You know, and ask people to be respectful. yeah, it is a bit of a problem, but yeah, it's just really sort of mixing it up a little bit and changing your delivery times so that it's not all at the beginning of the week, or just spread it out evenly throughout the week. Or you could even hold some stuff back, because we've got a separate store, you know, so we can always, if we've got a lot of stuff, we can always hold it back in the store and take it out in bits, you know, so it's not always, you know, the same people.
It certainly does show the need for it, doesn't it, that that's happening.
Yeah, should I just add that in Chudfridge is open again now, by the way. The co-op delivers the stuff direct because it's just across the road. So it literally delivers around the same time every evening, and everyone knows roughly when that is. So we don't have that control over varying that time, because it's, you know, half hour before they close, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, that it's very popular. And they did have problems with someone coming outside of Chudley on the bus and sort of scooping up large amounts and leaving again. But they did wait and have words with that person politely. Nothing horrible, I don't think, but you know, I think they did approach them to ask about it. But very much in Chudley, I mean, they've tried very hard to avoid the stigma. Again, it's about waste, not about poverty, but clearly it fills that need as well. But it's interesting that I know friends who haven't or won't use it because, or were very reluctant to use it at first because they were worried that it was for other people, you know, because of the worried about the stigma, and they didn't want to be seen to be taking something they shouldn't. And so I've had to always go, no, please, we're trying to save food. Don't waste it. Get down there.
We've had just the same, Bobby, just the same, yeah.
Yeah, it's changing people's sort of worries about it, isn't it? But a lot of people have adapted to it now and seem quite happy to go there now. So, and the kids, when they're waiting for the buses, very happy to go and help themselves to something nice. Had a whole delivery of sweets once, and it's like, oh no.
Yeah, we've kind of been at pains to point out to those people who said it's for other people, that by them actually going in and using it, they are making it more comfortable for those other people to use it too.
Absolutely. Courtney, can I just ask a quick question? Do you have a fridge? You don't have a fridge yet, do you? Do you plan to get a fridge?
If we get our trailer, we hope to be able to park it somewhere where we can hook up a fridge.
That'd be good.
Any other questions from anybody?
I think the fair share deliveries. I mean, we had a delivery a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, so I think they're going to be setting up a regional centre in Exeter. I understand. Yeah, so it's going to be more, you know, so getting regular deliveries from them is going to be a lot easier. You know, and so I sort of feel with lockdown easing, you know, I don't think the economy, I think there's going to be a lot of people who are going to be in financial difficulty and stuff. So, you know, and I think Fair Share really want to respond to that and, you know, make sure they've got so much stuff. You know, they really have overwhelmed, I think, with, you know, out of date stuff.
So I have a question for the folk from Crediton and Sustainable Bishop and Dawlish and looking else, and the Black Downs. So from what you've heard, are you thinking, you know, what are you thinking? Are you thinking, yeah, this is something we'd love to pursue in our locality, somewhere in mind, haven't got somewhere in mind? What's your response? Kate, you're muted.
Yeah, well, I think part of ours was stemmed actually just from excess produce down on the allotments. That's part of it. We've got, so we were trying to work out what the best way to deal with that is. And we were looking at sort of thinking of ways of distributing it to hits and whatever, but you know, there's two thoughts: keep it in the village, or you know, whatever works best for everybody, I guess. And then my second thought is we've got one small village shop which has actually probably done quite well out of COVID, because obviously people have been purchasing within the village and they've done remarkably well with their deliveries and all that sort of thing. So I need to make sure that probably if we do discuss stuff, that we bring them on board and work out a way to, so that we don't tread on any toes. And then my next thought is the actual location wise on the grounds, that it needs to be looked at, cleaned, serviced daily. And being only Bishop Stainton, we've only got our sort of regularly manned units, apart from, say, a church foyer, is actually the shop or the pub outlets. So I think we'll probably have another little Zoom at some stage and within ourselves and work out whether we're dealing with food excess or the poverty side of it, or quite what, and then we can work out the best way to go. And then we've obviously overlapped with a couple of people in our group are also in HITS as well, so we can try and work out the best way, I think, to go. I don't know what the others, if there's anything else the others want to say. No, Dawn and Katie, all right. And I think we've lost the other two for the moment. So thank you, though. It's been really interesting. It's been great. Yeah, thanks.
Great, thanks, Kate. So what about anyone else? What about Newton Abbot or Crediton or up in the Black Downs or Dawlish? Any thoughts?
I thought that was really very interesting, and I was particularly interested because Crediton, like Chudley, has got lots of small surrounding villages, and I was particularly struck by the idea of the van that Corinne is thinking of, because I was actually wondering, you know, whether you could go from village to village. Be really interesting. But we're also looking for a volunteer or a group of volunteers to start something in Crediton itself. But I think it will be two separate things.
Okay. And have you got an obvious location in mind, or not got to that point with your thinking yet, Caroline?
No, we haven't got obvious locations. One of the problems out in the villages is that, for example, some of the pubs have closed and some of the village shops, if they're the only thing in the village, you know, it's difficult to know how much they will welcome running this sort of service, which is evidently some sort of competition. So it would take quite careful presentation, I think. In Crediton itself, no, we're still beginning to explore.
Okay, lovely, thank you.
Helen, can I just say that the point about careful negotiation with the village shops, yes, absolutely. 2 of our villages have shops and they are the only outlets. And we, right from the first day, made sure that they knew what was going on, and we wanted to get them on side rather than feel that we were competing. We did have a sticky moment with one of them, and that's when we put out our FAQ saying this is not a free shop.
Yeah.
And it's not been, it was one of the slightly trickier bits of negotiation we had to do.
Yeah.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks, Coroney. Okay. Anybody else? Thoughts, reflections, next steps? Vanessa, and then Roger and Jackie.
Thanks very much for the talks. It was very interesting. I think at the beginning of the epidemic, we had Dawlish Town Council set up an additional HITS food bank within the Manor House, which is the Town Council offices. So that was all done very quickly, and as far as I understand it, that's still running, and a lot of volunteers obviously were needed for that, and there have been a lot of volunteers doing all sorts of things. But I wonder now how many people will be going back to work and that kind of thing. So I think we need to, if we did want to pursue it, which obviously we'd have to talk about as a group, we'd have to establish volunteer interest, and also establish what kind of need there might be. I know, you know, there's a lot that goes on with the shops and supermarkets anyway. We have a place called the Strand Centre that does a lot of community work already. So it would have to dovetail in with all these things that are already working within the town. So I think there's more questions than answers at the moment. Yeah.
Okay. Bren, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think I had in mind, just with Vanessa, thinking about our Strand Centre. We've got a new community hub place set up in Dawlish as well. So I would have thought there would be that need in Dawlish, especially at this time. So yeah, it'd be good to get chatting to people and try and get things moving. So I'm sure there is a need for it. And just, there must be surplus food people are just throwing away, and just, it's just getting that fact over to people that actually, as you say, love food, hate waste. Yeah, thank you. But it was really interesting. Thank you. Learned lots from it.
Great, thank you both.
Another thing,
Sally.
Sorry, can I just, another thing worth mentioning is all the shopkeepers already give a lot of things like lettuce and bread to the duck wardens who feed it to all the wildlife. So a lot of the things are already collected from shops in the town to give to the swans and the ducks.
Oh.
In terms of fresh produce.
Thank you both. Sally, you want to come back in?
Yeah, I was just going to say, you know, to encourage you to perhaps think about doing a pay as you feel cafe, you know, surplus food cafe, maybe once a month or something, because it's a, you know, it's a great way of getting volunteers and bringing the community together over surplus food. I mean, I'm constantly amazed at what, you know, the food that we produce, you know, 3-course meal kind of thing. You know, not that you have to do that. You could just start out with just doing soup and bread, you know, which is so easy to do if you've got surplus vegetables and bread, you know, and then you could just invite people along, you know, people pay as they feel, you know, and you get all kind of sorts of people coming together in the community, because food is like food, and it brings people together. And from that, we've had lots of volunteers who've come out of that.
Lovely. So it can be a great starting point if you don't want to go straight to the fridge.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Great, thank you. Roger and Jackie, I'm conscious you wanted to come back in. I'm also conscious of the clock. So just Roger and Jackie, what did you want to say?
I was just going to say that thank you for tonight. We've learned a lot from it, but we are actually coming at it from a different angle. We are much more concerned with food poverty, and we aiming to fill a gap between people who perhaps have got 2 incomes, they lose one job, they're not going to qualify for food bank, but they're still struggling to pay the utility bill, pay the rent, and we are trying to aim to help those people with food support, which maybe frees up other resources for other bills. So we're going to have a non-referral system, just operating from a community hall once a week initially.
We also went to Exeter if you want to go, any of you, to Exeter, Pennsylvania, to St Catherine's Priory. They've set up a food larder, and they are so lovely there, and they really helped us. They talked us through lots of stuff, and they gave us some tips to start up with. They were really, really helpful and really, really kind to us, which is why we're nearly ready to open. So, due to them.
Fantastic. Great. Good top tip.
So, sorry, can I just hear again the name of the people in Exeter?
St Catherine's Priory.
St Catherine's Priory. Thank you.
I think it's called the Pennsylvania something group. I can't remember. Anyway, they meet at St Catherine's Priory on a Wednesday and a Friday morning. And they've got 50 families there supporting already.
Wow. Fantastic. Thank you for that one. They're going to be inundated with visitors now. Coroney.
Yeah, I wanted to ask everybody for some advice, really. We need to get some kind of formal status, as I explained in my presentation. And some of our group are pushing strongly for us to try and get registered with the Charity Commission, which I'm not sure is going to be easy or possible. Others have said go for a community interest company. But also I was very interested to hear about Sustainable Tiverton, which acts as more of an umbrella group and which allows other things like this to start up. And I suppose I wondered which of the options people who've been there before would recommend, and is there already a group that, you know, might adopt a group like ours to save us and to save everybody reinventing the wheel and going through all this formality of the paperwork, which is not a small task.
Thanks for that, Courtney. Bettina, do you want to?
Yeah. Currently, I transitioned to now, but we an umbrella organizations exactly for people that come with ideas to open up things. We are CIC, and it's a lot easier and have a bank account. If we use Triodos Bank for that, a lot easier than a charity. But Action for Climate Teambridge, they want to be umbrella organizations for things like that. So maybe if you contact them, you could ask, because they just did the bank account and they are CIC. And if you could go to them, because that's one of their proposals, is to be an organization that offers that. So I don't know if you know anyone in that.
I know some ACT people, yeah.
Yeah, ask them. I think that is a possibility, because yeah. So it's just an idea. So I have a chat to them and maybe.
Yeah, what about Roger and Jackie? What are you planning?
Well, what we've done is we set up as a small charity as defined by the Charity Commission, which you don't need to register. You have to have an income of under £5,000 a year, not employ anybody, and don't own any property, which is fine.
Pretty easy for us.
So we went for that. You can download a constitution from the Charity Commission website, which is very straightforward and very easy. And we will use that. It will certainly see us through the first year. And then I think then later on, if we grow, we can then look at registering. But if you have an small income, that's fine. And people have accepted that status when applying for grants and so on.
Yeah.
So that was a very quick, easy, hassle-free, admin-free way of setting up.
And what was that called again, Roger?
It's a small charity as defined by the Charity Commission. If you go to the government website on charities and you look through it, you'll find a sample constitution for a small charity.
Okay, all right. I found sort of community groups and things. I suppose part of our concern was that if we're getting donations from the members of the community, that we might then be liable to pay tax on them if we're not a charity.
Well, you can be. This is a small charity, and the only stipulation is that you don't have an income of above £5,000 a year.
Yeah.
Obviously, once you know, as you grow, and obviously you're not allowed to own property or employ anybody, but you know, we're working with volunteers, and we're paying rent for a community hall, so we don't own anything. It's certainly probably not a long-term answer, but it's certainly an answer for maybe your first couple of years.
Yeah.
But
and just as a heads up to you, but also if we get a grant to buy a trailer like that, that's going to take us over £5,000 straight away.
Then you have to look at other options.
Yeah, and the reason the Charity Commission have turned us down first time is because we are not having people who've been referred, and we're not monitoring who takes stuff from the larder. Therefore, we can't guarantee that we're only operating for the benefit of people who really need it. We can't just be, you know, potentially giving away stuff to anybody who feels like walking in.
We are actually.
I'm conscious Katie wants to respond. And I'm conscious we've got 1 minute left.
It'll be very quick. When I was a member of Taste of the Teen, which was promoting food in this area, we formed a CIC, a community interest company, and from that you can get a bank account and stuff. And we didn't go down the charity route because it was too complicated for us. We were just a small group of volunteers. There we go.
Coroney, thank you for that, Katie. Coroney, we can have a separate conversation about legal structures if you want. That would be fine. Bobby.
Hello, I just wanted to say before the meeting does end that Emma Croft, she works as part of our team, and she's doing, which is mostly finished, a bid to the lottery about setting up a network of community fridges or larders in Devon. Now she couldn't be here tonight because Helen, she's on leave, I believe.
Yeah, she's got family visiting, so she's on leave.
Yeah, so but I'm conscious that she'd love to know about what each of you are up to, and she's looking to probably work with communities together or through towns and parish councils to help set up more of these fridges and larders across Devon, so not just in the Teignbridge and Mid Devon area but a wider. So if any of you are particularly interested in knowing how to get involved or to make contact with Emma, I just wanted to ask if I could pass on your contact details to Emma, if anybody would mind. Yes, Coroney's putting a thumb up. Yep, brilliant. Okay, that's good to know. I'll let Emma know because she'll need to know about this meeting a bit more detail. I'm sure she'd love to hear all of these wonderful projects going on.
I'd be pleased to be put in touch with Emma as well, please.
Yep, excellent. Okay. Helen, I hope you're going to let me have contact details.
Yes, everyone said yes. So GDPR compliance, all right? Yes.
Excellent.
Brilliant. We are at, and I don't know from Tila. So okay, I'll just double check and ask anybody to get in touch with me if they're not happy for those details to be shared. Okay. I'm conscious we're out of time. I'm sure we could have chatted around some of the issues for much longer. My laptop's telling me it's winding up, or winding down rather. So just really two things that I want to do is to say a massive thank you to Sally, Coroney and Heather as well for their, yes. Absolutely fascinating and really interesting, the two contrasting models, yes. And also hearing a little bit about Roger and Jackie and what they're up to in Teignbridge. So thank you so much. My other question to you would be, is there value, would you like this group to get together again at some point in the future and thrash through some more of the issues or share progress? Or yeah, who said that? Yeah, a few nods, a few doodlers. Okay, I'm going to take that as a maybe possibly. I will share the recording from this session with everybody, the link to the recording for this session, and say again, you know, Claire and I are here to connect and signpost and share and support in whatever way we can as you kind of explore or further develop your own ideas for community larders or fridges in your community. So just once again to say thank you very much, especially to Sally and Coroney, and for all of you for sharing your time with us this evening. Anyone got any final comments before we disappear?
I'd just like to say thank you, everyone. Such fantastic work. Absolutely brilliant.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
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 Thank you.
Bye.